It's now 6:30. We're going to call to order the Regional Planning Commission public hearing for Thursday, December the 7th, and as I said, it's 6:30. As we call to order, customarily we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Commissioner Mills to lead us in the pledge, please. Thank you, Mr. Mills. Roll call and determination of quorums. Sarah, please.
Mr. Peterman?
Here.
Mr. Servan? Mr. Servan? Mrs. Karcher?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Spanarelli?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Jester?
Here.
So you have 6 present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. As you all picked up an agenda out front tonight, I look at the numbers here, and most of you are probably here because of the Solar LLC. So we're going to ask for a change in the agenda. I'm going to ask that we move the number 2 application, CZ2108/LC21-22 Chicks, up to the first one. Having said that, I will now ask for an approval of the agenda with the change.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, please call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes.
Mr. Servan? Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Spanarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes, with the change in the agenda.
So you have 6 yeas in favor of approving the revised agenda.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now go to the introduction and public hearing instructions. Once again, back to you, Sarah.
Thank you. This public hearing is being conducted for the purpose of giving the citizens of the county the opportunity to present testimony on the applications before the Planning Commission. Everyone will have a chance to speak. All statements are to be made from the podium at the front of the room, and at the appropriate time, instruction will be given if you want to give testimony via WebEx. All testimony given shall be sworn or affirmed. For the record, please give your name and address. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification and inclusion in the record. The record will remain open for 2 business days following tonight's hearing. For each application before the Commission, the chairman will introduce the application. Then the applicant or representative will be given 15 minutes to present the application. Following that, those in favor will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. Then those opposed to the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. When everyone has had an opportunity to give testimony, the hearing on the application will be closed, and no decision will be made by the Planning Commission tonight. The Commission will hold a public business meeting next Thursday, December 9th, at 6:30 p.m., at which time it will make a decision on the applications heard tonight. All information of record will be considered, and a common vote of 4 members of the Commission is required to make a decision. Anyone may attend the business meeting, but no new testimony will be received. The public notice of this hearing was published on November 12, 2021 in the Delaware State News, and the Levy Court will hear these applications on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021 at 7 p.m. Unless tabled by the Planning Commission or withdrawn prior to the Levy Court hearing, the Levy Court also meets in this room. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now we'll go to our public hearing, and on the modified and approved agenda, the first one tonight will be ordinance number LC 21-22, application number and name CZ-2108 Chicks. Applicant is Sam Chick, 18011 South DuPont Highway, Harrington, Delaware, 19952. Owner is Frank Chick and Linda L. Chick of 646 Killens Pond Road, Harrington, Delaware, 19952. Present zoning and comp plan map designation is AR, Agriculture Residential, and BG general business, low density residential, and highway commercial. Proposed zoning is BG, business general, highway commercial. Relation to the growth zone is inside. Levy Court District is the 6th, Mr. Howell. School District is Lake Forest. Fire District is Harrington, Station 50. Area and location is 13.4 plus or minus acres. Area of petition is 6.5 plus or minus acres. Located on the east side of South DuPont Highway, Delaware Route 13, 0.19 miles south of the intersection of Messick Road, County Road 429, and South DuPont Highway, south of Harrington. Is there someone here to represent this application? Please come to the mic, give us your name and your address, and our attorney will either swear you in or affirm you. Please keep the mic close to your mouth, too.
Hello, Sam Chick, 706 Killens Pond Road, Harrington, Delaware.
Mr. Chick, do you swear or affirm, sir, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chick, go ahead with your presentation and tell us. I know the parcel is already partial BG, so you're just asking for the back to have a zoning change.
That is correct. Hello, Commissioners. Good evening. So it's pretty straightforward. So the approximately front half of the parcel is zoned BG. The back half is zoned AR. The parcel directly to the south is industrial. All the parcels to the north, which are not in the county but in the town of Harrington, they're all commercial all the way up the highway. And then, of course, directly across the highway is the State Fairgrounds, which is, I think, zoned industrial. That's a large commercial enterprise. So it fits the character of the area. The reason we're doing this rezoning is so we can build a new warehouse and expand our business. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
That sounds very good, and I assume you're in agreement with all staff recommendations?
Yes. So we have, are you talking about the county staff?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, I'll now open it up to you. Any commissioner on the phone or up here would like to have any questions of this gentleman? Anybody on the phone, Mark?
There are no commissioners wishing to make comments at this time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in favor of this application would like to speak? Third and final call. Anyone else here in favor of this application would like to speak? Going to the against side. Is there anybody here opposed to this application would like to speak? Anybody here opposed? Third and final call. Anyone here opposed to this application? Seeing none, then we will be taking this application up next week. Thank you for your presentation. Our next application tonight is application number CS-21-09. Application title, FPS Cedar Creek Solar, LLC. Applicants are FPS Cedar Creek Solar, LLC, Peter Ford, 58 Commerce Road, Stamford, Connecticut, 06902. Owners, Delaware Land Holdings 1, LLC, Nan Swan, 58 Commerce Road, Stamford, Connecticut, 06902. And the Piney Cedar Trust, care of Dr. Richard Peoples, 102 Vines Lane, Dagsboro, Delaware, 19939. The engineer is Becker Morgan Group Incorporated, care of Michael J. Henry, LEED AP, 309 South Governors Avenue, Dover, Delaware, 19904. Zoning district is AC, Agriculture Conservation. Comprehensive Plan MAC designation is low density residential. Relation to the growth zone is outside. Present use is agricultural and residential. Proposed use is solar facility and public utility. Solar array field. The project consists of the construction of a fenced solar array field consisting of approximately 225,000 panels and 22 inverters on approximately 260.46 plus or minus acres on the subject site. Water is well, sewer is septic. Levy Court District is the first, Maston. School District is Smyrna. Fire District is Smyrna, Station 44. Area and location, combined total of 528.66 plus or minus acres on the north side of Lighthouse Road, County Road 82, and the north side of Woodland Beach Road, Delaware 9, east of the town of Smyrna. Is there somebody here representing this application? Please come to the mic, and if you're not an attorney, you'll have to be sworn in.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Wendy Stabler. I am an attorney. Can you hear me? Is it appropriate to remove my mask, or would you be more comfortable?
Yes, you can pull it down and just keep the mic fairly close to your...
Thanks, I will do that. Thank you.
Go right ahead with your presentation. I
Thank
guess, am I right, Mr. Lyson? She's okay if she's an attorney.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. My name is Wendy Stabler. I'm with Saul Ewing, Arnstein, and Lear, and we're here for the applicant, which is an affiliate of Freepoint Solar, FPS Cedar Creek Solar. Here tonight are folks that I don't think really need an intro. They've been before you many times on this similar applications. I'm with Greg Moore here with Becker Morgan, Reed Wills, who's with SunEast, the local developer for Freepoint, Peter Ford with Freepoint. I'm also here with my colleague, Richard Forston. Jim McCauley could not be here this evening. He's been working with us on environmental issues, but I will be putting his testimony into the record. By way of background, while I am new to this proceeding, I am by no means new to Freepoint or to this project. I've started working with this client over 5 years ago when we first went before Newcastle County to secure changes to their ordinance, which would allow solar in all areas of Newcastle County, subject to meeting certain conditions, what they call limited use standards, something similar to your conditional use process. And in zones such as SR, which are very similar to your AC zoning. I have been working with Freepoint and the SunEast team in Delaware to provide homegrown clean energy to the city of Dover and other private parties looking to meet their long-term renewable energy goals in an affordable way through solar. And they have contractual obligations to fulfill and truly much, much investment on the line, including what will be about $10 million in Kent County, not including additional infrastructure investments. My point is not to bore you, but to assure you that this is not some fly-by-night operation. It does care about its neighbors and constituents, and in fact is now a landowner here in Kent County. So the application you have before you this evening, which Greg and Reed will go into in more detail, is something very familiar to you. You saw it before. You endorsed it, for the most part, 5-1 before. It did have some waivers attached, and this commission endorsed those. Unfortunately, the levy court did not agree with your wise recommendation and turned it down by a very slim margin. That denial, as you may know, is currently under appeal. And while we would certainly prefer not to continue that route, this client is very committed to doing whatever is necessary to meet its commitments to its valued customers. So you ask, why have they filed another plan while there is an appeal pending? Because they are going to pursue their rights, and the option that they would like to pursue most is to have this plan before you tonight approved. It's not the same plan, it's a better plan than the one that you endorsed back in September. We have listened, we have made modifications. We are not discouraged, we are prepared to move forward with a even less impactful plan, with less waivers and more protections for our neighbors than we had before. Nothing has changed since your last endorsement, other than you now have an even better plan before you. We surely meet the standards and believe we've further addressed the concerns of our neighbors by proposing several $100,000 worth of trees and massive wildlife corridor screening, as we'll show you in greater detail. So the primary, and you all are very familiar with the standards, but what I focused on was the public health, safety, and general welfare cannot be adversely affected by the application, and necessary safeguards should be implemented to protect property and persons. And we're going to present this evening the many ways that this project has done that. We will indeed show you that we again meet those standards and have even more protections for our neighbors. Indeed, it is difficult to imagine a project that will have less impact than a solar facility. It does not generate traffic, it will not generate noise, it will not generate emissions, odors, or dust. In fact, we're bringing 4,000 trees to an area that doesn't have any now. Moreover, this project will generate power without fossil fuels and will meet Delaware's goal, help to meet Delaware's goal for renewable energy, and we'll do it by creating it here. Some are here this evening. I realize that they have some concerns, and particularly with respect to the loss of what they feel is the loss of farmlands. They may have reservations about what will happen after the facility is at the end of its useful life. We will address those concerns, as well as bonds will be posted to ensure that the property is restored. This is indeed a temporary use, maybe not my lifetime, maybe not yours, but our children's and our grandchildren will see this property restored to farm with a wildlife corridor implemented as well. The Commission has already made a favorable recommendation on another Free Point project here, and we thank you for that. There's no reason to change your mind on that, nor on this one. There were no mistakes made the last time around. This board has been actively engaged in some of you in finding compromise and solutions. For that, we thank you, and thank you in advance for what we hope will be your continued support of a meritorious project. So as I alluded to, we think we're doing much less than would be impactful if you were to have, for example, a single-family housing where you would not have, for example, a 100-foot corridor or 4,000 trees buffering over more than 1 mile of frontage. Our project will be temporary. The corridor will be forever. So what we'd like to share is, in closing my remarks, and then turn it over to the civils and the experts, is that, you know, we did not go unsolicited to approach the farmers to force them to sell the land. You know, these parcels were listed on the open market. The families that decided to sell their farms had made that decision that they wanted out, and there was no farmer that stepped up to pay them. So this is an appropriate alternative. It's better than single-family housing and could eventually be restored to farming. So I have probably spoken too long already. I want to turn it over to our team to make the presentation. I do want to put into the record some comments that were, for the most part, reiterations of what was made, what was presented at the last hearing. We're trying to be as efficient as possible. And I would like to ask for your indulgence to, I think it is your custom to allow rebuttal. We do anticipate that there were folks that feel strongly and are emotional about this. We would like to reserve our opportunity to answer your questions.
I will point out that, you know, you're taking away from your engineer's presentation time. We do have a limit on how much time we allow for the presentation, because it has been before us before, and when he gets up, he's probably just going to kind of iterate what the changes were. So ever how much, before you step down, I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any particular questions of you. Mr. Davis?
Thank you very much for being here this evening.
Thank you, sir.
I heard you mention that that you've made some adjustments, and your statement was that you made new plans for the neighbors, but I didn't hear you mention what they are for the neighbors. I'd like
Yes.
for you to tell me what they are.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Greg do the detail, but in essence, you'll see that there is over 1,500 little linear feet, as I understand it, along Lighthouse Road. That will be a wildlife corridor. There will be 100 feet buffer, which will be filled with multiple layers of evergreen trees. There will be an additional, Greg said, let me talk the details because he's got 2 slides to do that and I don't want to take his time.
Yes, because your time is going to be, I will be cutting you off if you go past what the staff has told you how long you have. And so, do you have another question, Mr. Davis, or is that it?
No, I do have one question. Perhaps the other gentleman can address that.
Get introduced and swore in before we do anything with that. Okay, we do have a question for you, young lady, from Commissioner Karcher.
This young lady. Now, I have a question. So, Freepoint owns this land, but it also says in here as owners, Piney Cedar Trust. Why? Is there a co-ownership going on, or
No. So we, on behalf of Freepoint, its affiliate, who's named in the application, we closed on the property with the Knotts family. They had exercised that option. They wanted to move forward. They're committed to it. There's a different ownership related for the what we call the Piney Cedar property. That is under option. That is under contract, but we have not legally closed, so they are not the legal owner yet of that property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moore, you have a question for her? No. We'll let Mr. Moore come in and get sworn in and give his address. Hold on, sir. I got another question for her.
Ma'am, is this whole farm going to be fenced? And how many?
That's Greg Moore. That's from Greg.
Okay. And how many houses do you expect this to service? You know?
That's not her either. That's not her either. That's not her.
Well, let's swear, Mr. Moore.
Let's go ahead and get the engineer in, and then we can get these questions going.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome tonight.
My name is Greg Moore, 309 South Governors Avenue. I'm from Becker Morgan Group, and we're the site engineers surveyors for the project.
Mr. Moore, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
Thank you.
So I'll go quickly. You've seen Freeport before, and we've acknowledged that. They have settled on one of the properties. There's multiple properties here, so part of that is consolidating, which we are doing as part of this application. And as we said, that this client is actually providing City of Dover with power from the Raceway project, and that is about 20% of Dover's power from that project, which is a similar size to this. So it's a significant amount of homes that actually it serves. 20% of Dover's entire power is from that project. Moving on, the application that we've made is the same property, the same properties. We are still consolidating the properties as we were before. It is fully fenced, and it is very similar, but it is a new application because we have made it different. We had listened as we went through the hearing here and then at Levy Court. As we know, it did not get approved at Levy Court, so the modifications we think are pertinent. And we'll move right into them with the next slide. This is actually the property here. And what's different here is that we are planting 100-foot roadway buffers all the way along the roadway. That was 25 feet last time. So that has been significantly widened. We are at least 150 feet from any residence. Again, that is greater than last time. So we have moved our project away from our neighbors wherever we can. And we are also planting all over 4,000 trees either on the site, and our proposal was that we would do it on an adjacent site. But we agree with staff that since we didn't identify that property, we are agreeable to planting all those trees on the property itself. And if we can come up with another property that staff believes is better than this, we would let staff decide whether that makes more sense. So basically, we're agreeing to remove our request for our waiver, but allowing staff to make that decision as we develop another property perhaps that might be better for the trees. So with that, same piece of property, everything's the same as last time. If we go to the next slide, the staff made recommendations in their report. We agree with all 7 of their recommendations, every single one. And all of their conditions we can comply with. We think the most important one is the decommissioning, which makes this a temporary use. And we think that's important because it can go back and being farmland. Housing developments, commercial cannot do that. That makes this project different, and it does alleviate some of the concerns. As far as the waivers and the buffers, we have agreed with your staff, and we are going to do 100-foot buffers that are planted with 8 rows of trees in all locations. And that is significantly greater than the last time we were here. The last time we were here, they were 25-foot with 2 rows of trees. They're now 100 feet with 8 rows of trees. And that allows screening, that allows them to be hidden, the actual panels to be hidden from the roadways and from the neighbors, and we think that is a big difference. And it also provides corridors for wildlife to move. There is one waiver, and your staff does recommend conditional approval, as you know, and one of the waivers we are effectively saying we agree with them and let them decide. The other waiver we want to point out, which is the buffer waiver related to the wetlands and streams and so on, and I want to go into that. So next slide. This is what 8 rows of trees will look like from the road. That's a 100-foot buffer, and it's planted. And not only are we doing it along the road, but we are, because staff requested it, we are doing it everywhere else as well. That's over a mile of 100-foot width of trees. I can tell you that's the largest buffer that you've ever seen from Becker Morgan or anybody. This is a significant improvement to the plan in terms of screening. Next slide. So what you're seeing here is this is the area along the roadway where we are widening from the 25 and 2 rows to 8 rows of trees and 100 and all the way along the road so that you will not see these panels. We are also, in our original submission, we screened that down to 25 feet here, but we are going to agree with staff and continue that 100 all the way along the edge of the property. Next slide. And in this submission, we actually increased by 1,575 additional buffer feet, separating this property from the solar panels. And this is a 25-foot buffer that was submitted, but we're agreeing with your staff to go to 100. So it will be 100 over a mile from this point all the way along to the edge of the road. So the whole property is being screened very, very strongly so that you can't see it. Next slide. The one discussion we wanted to have was we did make a waiver request for the buffering, and what we're asking to do is we're asking to put our panels in the farm ditches setbacks. There's a 25-foot setback in the code, but the way the code's written, it groups lakes, streams, waterways, wetlands, and all of these things as one unit. We are not asking the commission to waive getting closer to the wetlands. We are going to stay more than 25 feet from the wetlands, and we have had professional delineations and surveys to know that where those wetlands are. But there is a couple of ditches in the middle of the fields, and all we want to do is be able to put our panels up to the edge of the ditches. And what that means is that right now what's happening is there are row crops in those same fields, and the row crops actually have open earth. That's part of the row cropping process. And that soil can actually drain into the ditches. With the panels there, we have a very nice and complete cover, and that allows the rain not to move the soil. And being in those buffers is actually better than today, and we believe meets the intent of the staff's request in terms of making sure we minimize impact to the streams and the sediments that go into the waterways. So that's a little bit of a clarification. Sarah and I have talked about that, and we would certainly look to staff to make a comment on that. Just for the record, that same waiver was granted last time. We understand that there has been opposition, and that's why we're back with a plan that has wider and better and more trees and so on. So we're trying to be good neighbors where we can. Next slide. Can we go back to the aerial? I want to be clear about that one waiver request before I turn it over to, back actually to your original aerial that you had up. because what I'm saying here is that the wetlands that we have flagged and surveyed are all around this outside edge. We are more than 25 feet, and we meet those buffer setback requirements for all of that. Where we don't meet it is in these ditches that are really man-made ditches that drain the fields here and a small portion here and a small portion over here. And it's only in the actual area where there's row crops that we actually want to go in the buffer. Not the wetlands, not the ponds, not the natural areas. We're staying fully away from that. So we just wanted to be clear. And with that, I'll turn it over to any questions you have. One question that was
Thank
already
you.
asked was what about fencing?
I do have one question for you, though. So you was going to plant the trees off-site. Now you're putting all the trees on the parcels.
What we're saying is that we're agreeing with staff. We can put the trees all on the parcel. Much of our buffering and our widening allows us to do that, along with some other pieces that we have. We have areas along the edge of the wetlands, so we can put all the trees, and we're agreeing with that tonight. And
Sir, do we have any comment on that? Is that agreeable with staff?
Well, certainly meeting what the code says, staff has no argument with that. The second half of the proposal, I know the applicant has been working with DENREC and the Department of Ag, forestry within the Department of Ag, potentially identifying a property where additional trees might make sense. I don't think staff could approve that independently, provided this application is approved. But we could definitely bring it back just as a waiver, demonstrating where the trees would be going with the endorsement of either the Department of Ag or DENREC.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Davis has a question for you, Mr. Moore.
Get my mask down here. As you know, I voted for this last time it came in. And I watched the levy court video about the testimony from people that were there that definitely was not at our meeting, and I would imagine it appears some of them may be here tonight. Now, what I'm hearing is you talk about trees, you talk about buffers, but you don't talk about what I like to talk about. And I'm going to bring this up. I've been hunting, particularly duck hunting and goose hunting, for over 50 years. And I can tell you from experience, I read a letter that came in to our package that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife didn't have any comments about this. Well, obviously that's the reason why. This is kind of a new industry in the United States, so they probably don't have any data. And I'm very concerned about the issue of the wildlife when it comes to geese and Atlantic flyway. Route 9 and that east side of 9 is the best hunting in our state of Delaware. And I have a major concern about putting these panels out there, because I can tell you as a goose hunter and a duck hunter, if you put a truck out in a goose field, them geese they're going to fly away. They veer off. I have a place as a cabin on the marsh, and I've been up there hundreds of times. When them geese come over, they get away from it. That doesn't make you too happy when I see this happening in this flyway. And I have concerns that your panels are going to destroy some of the best hunting that we have in this state. Secondly, just as a comment, I know this is a new industry in this country, but from what I've seen in the past few months about sites coming in here, you're always picking farmland. I lived there my entire life. Our farmers are gradually leaving. And you're going to go out there to that prime land and take prime farmland and put up a bunch of panels that's going to destroy our geese and our wildlife. And apparently somebody just doesn't care. Well, I'm a person that cares about that kind of stuff. And I'm looking after, and I'm trying to look after the farmers, because I've seen a couple occasions where this comes up. It's all about the trees, it's all about the buffers. Nobody talks about the farmers, what they're going through, the millions of dollars they have to spend on equipment. They get a bad year, they lose all the money. They work 7 days a week, probably 16 hours a day. Now we're going to take the prime farmland that we have in our state that people come from out of state to go hunting, and we're going to put all these panels up there, and you would never convince me that those panels will not destroy that wildlife, particularly geese up there. So I'll be very frank about it. I'm going to listen to testimony, and I'll make a decision next week. But I don't think this is the place for it. I don't think on east side of Route 9 you should have any panels up there. Whether it's, whether it's Lipsick, whether it's Little Creek, Port Mahon, that is a very precious area. And that marshland is protected by the Coastal Zone Act. And here we are getting into this precedent of putting panels. This panels farm goes up here, we're going to see an influx of everything up and down that thing because we set the precedent. And I don't think that's right. That's my comments, how I feel about the wildlife, particularly geese. Nothing personal. I'm telling you from experience, I've seen it happen, and we're going to destroy the wildlife, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Do you have a question for him, Mr. Davis? You said you had a question for him.
I guess it's a statement. If you wanted me to say what I'm going to say, I told you what's on my mind. It's a statement. Don't really have a question. I don't know if he's got a question or if he's got an answer to what I said. I haven't seen no letters from anybody of authority in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife that has stated on a paper that it's not going to affect the wildlife. If you've got that, I would like to see that for next week. Maybe you do.
Yeah,
That's
so
question.
the area, there's a significant amount of area, nearly 300 acres of wetlands that's going to be preserved and will be available for community hunting. And Freepoint is actually working to develop that. So that is a significant improvement, meaning these areas will not change. And there was a previous question about the about fencing. There is fencing around the entire panels. They are fenced. Those wildlife quarters will be outside of that to allow wildlife to move horizontally and across them. And I'm going to let Reed Wills, who represents Freepoint and Son, answer the question about the hunting.
I'm going to have a question now from Commissioner Karcher.
Well, no, I think I'm going to wait for the next speaker.
Any other questions?
Does any other commissioners on the phone or here up front have any questions for Mr. Moore, the engineer?
Mr. Servon.
Do I hear anybody?
Mr. Servon, you may go ahead.
Yes, I just had a question about all the equipment and everything that's going into that field. Is that setup of equipment totally reversible once the solar panels wear out, or decisions made not to use that location?
Yes. So my testimony is that basically with the solar project that's going to go within the fields, there is no structure other than a pole that gets driven in the ground. There is not a foundation. So the pole is able to be pulled directly out just as it was put in. The roadways are stone. They are not paved, and those stone roads can be removed. And that's how, and it's really of the over 200 acres of solar panels, there's less than 10 acres of total disturbance, which is roads and actual disturbance from the supports going in the ground. And that's why it makes perfect sense to post the bond. They can be removed and the farm can be restored when the panels are done. And
thank you very much.
That is a condition of approval, and we agree with it.
Does Mr. Servon, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Mills, you have a question?
Yeah, my question is, I think what we talked about last time was, in fact, I don't see where you made any changes except for put a buffer around it. I've been in the agriculture business all my life. Now, my question is why can't you find a place to put these panels that doesn't destroy the prime farmland of the state of Delaware? We're trying to preserve farmland, not destroy it. And this is destroying that land right there. All of that land up Route 9 is 300 bushel corn to the acre without irrigation, year after year after year. Corn produces energy. So why can't you use marshland, or why can't you use wetlands? You don't want to know why? Because it's protected. It's time we started protecting the farmers.
Okay,
So the question is, why can't we put these panels in wetlands? Because they are protected and there's codes in the county that prohibit us from doing that. So we do have to pick upland lands. So that is by code prohibited, and we're trying to be complying with the codes of the county. So that's my answer.
thank you, Mr. Moore. You have somebody else you're going to bring to the
I'm
mic?
going to turn Reed Wills, who represents Freepoint.
Come to the mic, give us your name, your address, and you can either be sworn or affirmed.
Yeah, my name is Reed Wills. I'm with Sun East Development and work for Freepoint Solar as their partner here in Delaware. My address is 110 Phoenixville Pike in Malvern, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Wills, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Can we go back to the slides? Thanks.
And your expertise is in?
So I'm, my background, I'm a undergraduate geography and land use planner at Temple University. Got a master's degree in energy management and policy from the University of Pennsylvania. And I've worked in the energy industry in all types and applications of the energy industry, coal, gas, and wind and solar for over 30 years, working for some of the largest utilities in this country.
Okay, go ahead with whatever you have to say about this project.
Sure. So one question that was asked was how many homes would be serviced by a project of this scale? This would be something on the order of about 10,000 homes, 10,000 residences. So you could think about it as 20,000 or 25,000 residents of Kent County. The points we wanted to make here, I think the first one, solar projects don't require fuel. They don't have emissions. And the reason we were able to sell power to Dover in a competitive auction process, so we had to compete against everybody else in the market at a fixed price of 4 cents, below 4 cents a kilowatt hour for over 25 years, is because all the investment is made up front. And that way we're going to get long-term financing. We don't have long-term operating costs. So unlike what we're experiencing in the natural gas market, and in the gasoline market, they have, as a part of their energy mix, fixed price power for 25 years. So yes, this is clean energy. Yes, it's renewable energy, and it meets a state goal. But they bought this as an alternative to gas. They didn't have to go out and buy this because this was a cost-effective option for them. And we have other customers, this was alluded to before, that we're working with. And so we just wanted you to know this is good for Delaware businesses, and it's good for Delaware jobs. Now, we also create jobs on a short-term basis. It'll run anywhere from 12 to 18 months, and we'd have over 100 construction jobs, and certainly there'll be service jobs that'll be supported. You've heard about all the tree planting that has to take place. There's some guarantees we have to do over the first couple years to make sure there's no dieback. There's going to be a pollinator habitat, which will be native grasses. I hope our friends in the agricultural industry will point out that this type of wildflower mix is pollinator habitat, and that is definitely something that's in decline in the state of Delaware and the state of Maryland. We're not required in any way to do that. This is something we commit to do with our projects. Other benefits, there'll be additional real estate taxes that will come because we're going to be coming out of agriculture. Greg already spoke to the fact that we have a decommissioning bond. We're going to have a minor impact on the land. And I've spoken about the pollinator habitat. So we just wanted to quickly run through some of the benefits that are going to accrue to the state of Delaware and to Kent County. Next slide, please. So, our last message here was just to say that this is a clean form of energy. We're going to be recharging the ground. I know there's concerns that we're taking land out of agriculture. We are doing that on a temporary basis. We are creating pollinator habitat, which is accretive and will help all of the area around it. And at the end of the day, I don't know of any businesses that have to post bonds to completely remove all of their equipment at the end of the day. We're a very unique business in doing that, and we're going to stand behind that. My last point that I would make is, we understand that hunting is critical and important to the people in the state of Delaware. One of our folks will get up here and read in testimony, but we're working with people who live across the river. So we're communicating with people. We're communicating with our neighbors. Somehow we missed the neighbor slide. I apologize for that. And they're comfortable. Brickstore Landing, which is the Willis family, the Tush family, are people we're working with on a regular basis. So I understand this is new. I understand people have concerns, but I also think just to get some balance into this, there are people that are equal stakeholders to other people who are adjacent landowners here that are getting comfortable with it, and it took some time. We had to sit down, we had to communicate, but I think we were effective in doing that. I didn't talk about the neighbors, but we did do outreach to each of the neighbors. I know Mr. Goldsboro is here. We've sat with him. Dave Hazel's here. He's our land outreach person, and he's spoken with several of the people that are here. And we know that they have concerns. We know this is new, and we know some people feel strongly about this. And so that's why we've come back to the trees are important. The aesthetic impact is important, and sharing information and being available is important. And so we've got somebody who's a dedicated resource to go ahead and do that. I'm all done except for one point. This is just a change from the last time we were here. The Kent County records did not show, there's a portion of the Goldsboro property that's actually shown, if you go to the Kent County websites, that's in the, that was showing as part of Piney Cedar. Again, in an effort to communicate effectively, I think we've sat down with the Goldsboro 2 or 3 times. They pointed this out to us. We did the further deed research, and that, is certainly their property. It's very important to them for hunting. We've worked that out. You guys have seen us before. We're committed to working with our neighbors, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Don't leave the mic right now. Mr. Davis has a question, and I think some of the others might too.
Thank you. It's nice to have you with us tonight. I know we've had an application, several applications prior to this one, and one of the questions was asked before, and I'm going to ask you the same question, was you mentioned in your statement there was 10,000 homes you'd be supplying electricity to. And the question is, that I asked the other people, is there cost savings to those 10,000 customers? Are they going to get a reduction in their electric rate? Because another company said no, because we're going to provide the service to a municipality. So I want to know what it's going to do for 10,000 people in our county.
Well, what's going to happen is the City of Dover utility is a regulated utility and has a cost of service. What they've done here is they did a master plan, and they said, what is the cheapest source of energy for us, both near term and long term? And this was the solution they came up with. There's testimony that we could share with the commission if you're interested in seeing it. So their decision was to first, before they did their auction, to go to solar. And it's just sort of like when you have your financial portfolio and you want to have some fixed price and maybe you want to have some things in the market. We're protecting the citizens of Dover by having a low price that's fixed and guaranteed for a 25-year period.
If I understand your answer correctly, you're referring to the City of Dover, where you're going to provide this electricity?
Yes, sir.
How about all the people out in the rural area? What's it going to help them with? What's it going to help the neighbors? Are they going to get any savings out of their electric bill? They don't have Dover electric?
They will not get savings on their electric bill. The benefits.
Thank
you. Okay.
I think Commissioner Karcher has a question here.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, but I'll make my statement first. I've been here on the commission for 20 years, and I'm well known as a tree hugger. And yes, farmland should remain, a mainstay of Kent County, but also change is inevitable. And I'm also a big believer in that we have climate problems and that we do have to go to things other than fossil fuels. So my questions are the sites, this is just me being kind of nosy, I suppose, are the sites that are chosen, and I'm not just talking about Delaware, But are the sites that are chosen always purchased land, or are they sometimes leased?
No, they're probably, for the 40-odd projects that we're involved in, it's probably 50-50.
And I figured it was a little bit of both. Has there been any problem in the Dover, in the site that's already in Dover?
No, we're moving through our
As far as-
construction
as far-
permits,
as far as
no problem.
Geese flying over, I mean, there's no way.
It's not constructed yet, ma'am. It's not constructed yet.
Oh, it's not totally constructed, okay. 7 years from now, I see that the solar industry is going to improve exponentially, technologically speaking. So I'm not thinking 20 years from now, I'm thinking 7 to 10 years from now. I don't know, the panels suddenly can become much smaller and equally efficient, or whatever changes. Would, and I guess this is for Sarah, not for you really, but I'm assuming that you could remove and replace or do things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be a possibility.
And would that come back in front of us, Sarah?
I'm sorry, I don't believe it would have to, provided the footprint stays the same. If it's not getting bigger, I think it'd be fine.
But I mean, I think it's going to be exponential in the next 5 to 10 years. Okay. Oh, I just wanted to add in, I love the fields, I love the flowers and all that. Have beekeepers shown interest in these sort of, I would think so. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
All right.
and we're absolutely open to coordinating with them, and we have done that at some of our other
Yeah.
projects.
I'm married to an entomologist, so I had to ask that question.
Okay.
I thank you, Mr. Carter. Does anybody else on the commission up here or on the phone have any questions for this individual?
Question.
Go ahead, Mr. Mills.
You mentioned about employment a while ago. How many
Yes,
do you expect full-time employees? Now, the construction of it, that's temporary.
Yes, sir.
But how many people are you talking about that would be employed full-time after this operation is up and running?
There won't be any full-time employees after it's up and running.
Because it's not going to make any employment then. So you just got to, you mentioned a while ago that there was going to be employment.
Yes, sir.
The construction is temporary.
The construction is
So
temporary.
there's not going to be any employment after the construction and this project is up and running. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is there will be no full-time employees on site. That doesn't mean there's not going to be job opportunities. There's still going to be the entire 260 acres that has to be maintained. And so we have to go out there and we have to do maintenance of the ground cover.
So that's maybe 4 or 5 people.
That's gonna be a
Most.
part of it. And then we have equipment that has to be maintained as well.
Is that okay, Mr. Mills? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate the presentation and enlightening us on certain things that we might have not knew about.
Thank you for your time.
Does the group have any other presentators as far as engineers or anything? Seeing none, I will ask, is there anybody else here in favor of this application? Anybody else here in favor? Young lady right there, come to the mic, give your name, your address, and you'll be either sworn or affirmed.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Kidner. I reside at 3 Shinnecock Road in Dover, Delaware. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening, and at the request of my friend and colleague Lincoln Willis, who is a neighboring landowner to these particular parcels at issue, I rise to read a letter into the record that he wrote to the Regional Planning Commission in support of the project. I believe staff received a copy directly from him earlier this evening. To the Kent County Regional Planning Commission, dear members of the Kent County RPC, I write to offer my support for the Cedar Creek Solar Project. Please excuse my absence due to a previous commitment and accept these comments for the record. I live in Clayton, grew up in Smyrna, graduated from Smyrna High School, and have a small business in Dover. More importantly, for the purposes of this written testimony, I am a waterfowler who hunts adjacent to the parcels in question. The Cedar Creek project came on my radar earlier this year, and I'm working with them as a consultant amongst my other clients. However, This written testimony is solely in my capacity as someone who hunts across the river from the proposed project. Hunting has been passed down to me by generations of waterfowlers and game hunters. Waterfowl hunting is very important to me. I first took my boys, now 8 and 9, hunting about 2 years ago. They have grown to love hunting just as I did when it passed down to me by my family. Simply put, I believe the solar project will be a good use of the land. More importantly, I don't believe that it will affect the hunting that I look forward to doing with my boys, not only now, but through the life of the project. What impresses me most about this project is their commitment to improving the quality of the land, waterfowl hunting, and deer hunting. They are committed to preserving the hunting tradition and the quality of the marsh and hunting environment in general. Respectfully, I look forward to your positive recommendation of approval to levy court. Sincerely, Lincoln D. Willis, Esquire, 142 Island Lane, Clayton, Delaware, 19938.
I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the reading. Is there anybody here with a question for this young lady about what the letter said? If not, I thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here in favor of this project? I'll get this one over here, and then I'll come back over here. Gentlemen, sir? Thanks. Please give your name, your address. You can either be sworn or affirmed, and keep the mic close to you, and you can remove your mask.
My name is John Price, 5 East Green Street, Middletown, Delaware.
Mr. Price, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to read some thoughts that I had into the record. My name is John Price, again, Patterson Price Real Estate firm here in Delaware. For 41 years, I've been selling land and farms in Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Several years ago, I was approached by Free Point Solar to assist them with land opportunities in Delaware. I have thus far, in our dealings, found this company to be a straightforward, reputable organization with integrity at all the different levels I've dealt with. As clean, renewable energy begins to replace our dependence on finite fossil fuels in Delaware and nationwide, I, for one, am glad to see that we have companies such as Free Point Solar to help lead the way. Delaware has stepped up to the plate to incentivize more solar facilities and associated investment across our state, and this project will help us accomplish those state goals. As a side note, and a real estate agent selling farms, these farms were both for sale for some time, and no one stepped up to the plate to offer terms that were nearly acceptable to the sellers. Their availability to Free Point only happened because no one else wanted them. And that concludes it. Who do I give this to?
I thank you, sir, and you can leave the copy of the letter with staff, but I'll ask first, does anybody on the commission have a question for this individual? Seeing none, you can drop the letter right off over here with the staff. Yes, sir. Now you'll be next to come up. Give us your name, your address. You can be either sworn or affirmed.
Thank you. My name is David Baker. I live at 143 Wiggins Mill Road in Townsend.
Mr. Baker, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm a retired farmer from Newcastle County. My family for decades has advocated for smart land use and individual property rights. Long-term effects on property conversions is greatly influenced by public acceptance of alternative technologies and local development pressure. As urban development expands onto the Delmarva Peninsula, agriculture is being squeezed and land is converted to housing and new businesses. Many of the prominent farming families on Delmarva were escapees from Long Island, New York, eastern Pennsylvania, and other regional agricultural areas overrun by development. These land use changes don't happen overnight. In the aggregate, the change may be generational. Without urbanization pressures, the peninsula, with very large level land areas, could convert to more intensive agriculture. These farms could have become, use by right, an ideal location for mega dairy, feedlots, hog lagoons, or even high-intensity poultry production. But of course, public resistance to these intensive agricultural practices would be strong enough to discourage the most opportunistic entrepreneur. Property owners' underlying and constitutionally protected rights are now increasingly influenced by zoning, land use regulation, and neighbors' expectations. I've always felt that the influence exerted on landowners' rights by regulators, councils, levy courts, and neighbors eventually comes at a cost to all landowners. I cringe when I hear property owners object to any landowner's decision to manage or convert their property to a higher use. I believe it should be the landowner's right to determine the future of his land. At this moment, with a desire and demand for clean energy to power our homes and businesses, I support the landowners and the solar power companies' initiative to develop solar energy. Solar arrays are the least menacing conversion for land use and likewise energy generation. And I wanted to add on, after listening to comments, the part of southern Newcastle County, southern Newcastle County below the C&D Canal, where we farmed, in many years, we considered the geese population to be a menace. They destroyed, in some instances, 50, 60, 80% of a wheat crop. And they can do great damage to agriculture. Thank you.
Sir, hold on a minute. Thank you right there. Does anybody in the commission have any questions? If not, I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Anybody else here in favor of this application would like to speak? Seeing none, asking for at least 3 times. I'm now going to go over to the against. I will ask that if a lot of you are together or have a spokesman.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chairman, but just a point of order. Could I just put into the record Mr. McCulley, who addresses the issues of the ditch and the riparian buffer setback? I'd just like to put his.
Okay, drop it over there with staff, and they'll get us copies. We're going over to the against side. We have somebody on the phone. Excuse me.
If there is anyone that's
anybody
joining
on
us,
the phone that's for this project and would like to speak.
for those joining us on WebEx by phone, if you'd like to make comments in favor of this application, press *3 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute your line. Okay, the caller just raised your hand. You can press *6 to unmute and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Dustin Thompson. I live actually in Wilmington, Delaware. I am a staff member for the Sierra Club Delaware chapter, and just wanted to speak in.
Sir, hold on, sir. Sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah. Sorry.
Proceed.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, so just wanted to speak in favor of the project, and just to kind of call back to a question that was raised earlier around the energy price, the question around energy price. I just wanted to add into the record that it is a little, I would say, premature to say that there would be no benefit in the state or to ratepayers not directly connected to this particular project or the city that is purchasing the power from the project. With the addition of distributed energy resources, we actually do see deferred costs in distribution and transmission system upgrades, which do cost ratepayers in our state and around our region in the rates that they pay for electricity. Adding to that, the variability and volatility of the market with regards to natural gas and other forms of energy that is currently being procured that we're seeing in abundance right now, that volatility. With the static and low cost of utility scale solar that remains at the low cost, as was stated previously, I don't think it's quite fair to say that coupling those two concepts together, that there would not be savings on bills in the long term or even in the short term for those that are benefiting directly from the purchase of the power, but also long-term for those that are going to reap the benefit from avoided costs to the transmission and distribution system. So I just wanted to clarify that and to thank the project owner for doing the right thing with the tree planting and ensuring that we are protecting the wetlands in this area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I'm asking the commission now, is there anybody here with any questions or on the phone that have any questions for this individual? Once again, I thank you for your comments.
Okay, Mr. McCullough, you have your hand raised. You can unmute your line and state your name and address for the record and be sworn in.
Hello, my name is James McCauley of Watershed Eco LLC, located at 100 Middle Avenue in Newark, Delaware.
Sir, do you swear or affirm tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed.
Ms. Stabler mentioned earlier that I couldn't be there tonight, but I still wanted to provide a little bit of testimony. I won't take up too much of your time. But I just wanted to let the commission know that I've conducted all the environmental investigations on the subject parcel, including wetland delineation, tidal studies, stream studies, rare species database searches. And throughout this process, the developer of the project has been extremely involved, asking questions, visiting the site, wanting to understand the resources, and wanting to understand how to best protect those resources. We met with DNREC, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the State Historic Preservation Office, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to discuss the project and share all of the findings and ask for input. Most clients don't want to do that. They don't want to get input from the agencies unless they have to. We've conducted additional investigations based on what those agencies have asked us to do based on these suggestions. And I'd like to also add that this project will temporarily convert the plowed agricultural field to a native meadow, which is a rare habitat in Delaware. And this temporary meadow condition will greatly improve the topsoil on the site by adding tons of organic matter and beneficial microorganisms, so that when this project is over, this will be very, very productive farmland, having given the soil a rest and a chance to reinvigorate itself, as well as achieving all the stated energy goals that we've heard about earlier. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Mr. McCauley, for your comments. I will open it up to commission. Does anybody here have any questions for this individual, either on the phone or up front? Seeing none, as I started to say before, we're now going to go to the against side. Every one of your comments are very important to us. We'd like to hear them. But if you do have a group that's going to be saying the same thing, we'd like to see a spokesman. So we won't be carried out too long, but we understand how important what you have to say is. So open it up to the against side. I will now say, is there anybody here would like to come to the mic and speak against this project? Young lady standing up right there with the long Christmas list in her hand, it looks like. Very good. Give us your name, your address. You can either be sworn or affirmed.
I'm Tricia Hurd Nash, 3652 Big Woods Road, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Ms. Hurd Nash, do you swear or affirm tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please pull the mic closer to her, or get closer to it, please.
Is this good?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay.
I have a bunch of old people up here who can't hear very good.
I'm not that young either. Good evening. My name is Tricia Hurd Nash. I'm part of a fourth-generation farm family here in Kent County. Our family owns approximately 1,000 acres of land on the east side of SR1 near Bombay Hook Wildlife Refuge and Woodland Beach Wildlife Area. One of my family's farms is within a mile of this proposed industrial complex. I'm here tonight to represent my community and our concerns with the use of land zoned for agricultural conservation by solar companies specifically for utility-scale solar complexes. Together, the families represented in this room and that I have received comment from own thousands and thousands of acres on the east side of SR1. According to the Kent County Code, Section 205-44AC, or agricultural conservation zoning, is in place, quote, to provide for a wide range of agricultural and farm-related services while providing for low-density residential development in areas where farming may not be the optimum land use activity, end quote. I'm unaware of a piece of farmland in our AC district that is not already being farmed, and if there were land not suitable for farming, I fail to see how solar development constitutes low-density residential use. On that note, I'm going to deviate from my notes here and say that I've heard several comments that the farm wasn't purchased, it was up for sale, there were no offers made. I know that's untrue. I can't prove that to you, but I know that there were offers made by farmers to buy this farmland. There's probably a list of them, but they probably couldn't outbid the solar company. Okay, so going on from there.
Your point is well taken.
Okay.
Because you are under oath.
I hope so. Quoting the Kent County Comprehensive Plan, agricultural preservation is not simply an issue of preserving open spaces or the rural character of Kent County. Rather, it is an issue of protecting a major economic force in both the county and the state. According to the Delaware Department of Agriculture, the agriculture industry in Delaware provides more jobs and impacts the state's economy more than any other sector. As stewards of the land and the agriculture industry in Delaware, we have a responsibility to restrict and suspend these deals until we have a full understanding of the potential impacts. I've also compiled a list of other concerns, which are as follows. At the last public hearing I attended, the solar company agreed to return the farmland to farming condition at the end of its use as a solar farm. They also testified that reclaiming farmland is not something they have ever actually done. Before we allow the use of land zoned for agricultural conservation, shouldn't we be asking if restoration is actually possible and at the very least be presented with an example of successful farmland restoration following the removal of solar infrastructure? Many solar development proposals require funds for cleanup and restoration at the conclusion of the lease period to be set aside. If it's never been done, how can we properly estimate what the cleanup cost will be? Fertilizer prices are skyrocketing daily. That alone is an unknown factor if the land is to be returned to productive farmland. There is already land available to expand existing solar complexes in Kent County, such as White Oak Road, which has already indicated plans for growth in the coming year. Why are we allowing conditional use permits for more land zoned under agricultural conservation to be developed in Kent County when existing solar fields can be expanded? In the comprehensive plan, the Office of State Planning Coordination identified 1,882 acres of vacant land zoned for commercial or industrial use, and an additional 593 acres of commercial or industrial land that was only partially built out. Why not use this land for solar development rather than taking land out of farm production in a zone specifically marked for agricultural conservation? The solar company's answer is that the industrial land cost more to lease or to purchase. The comprehensive plan also brought up the Delaware Birding Trail and Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge and the important role they play in Kent County. The properties in the agricultural conservation zone on the east side of SR1's corridor are directly in the Atlantic Flyway. The Atlantic Flyway is one of the 4 main paths for migratory birds over the continental United States. Bombay Hook Wildlife Refuge is cited by the National Audubon Society as one of the most frequented and important sites along the Flyway. The impact of utility-scale solar fields on migratory birds in our area specifically is unknown, but solar fields in general have proven detrimental in areas of wildlife settlement and migration. If any part of our area which falls under the vital Atlantic Flyway is to be used for solar, it strikes me as woefully irresponsible to do so until proper studies on the potential impact of development have been conducted and made publicly available. A point was raised at the previous hearing that landowners in the area would be opposed to any kind of development, which is untrue. We are opposed to utility-scale solar complexes and the negative impact they will have on our land values and our lifestyle. The county has helped make our area a target for utility-scale solar by limiting our rights with our land. The designation as an ag conservation district in itself limits our rights. The county has helped create the perfect storm for our area to be targeted by utility-scale solar. The county now owes it to us, its landowners, to do the right thing. Uphold years of restrictions and limitations placed on landowners within the ag conservation district to protect it. Protect our land. I'd like to make clear I'm not against solar energy. I am against using land zoned under agricultural conservation for utility-scale solar development. Farmland is too precious of a resource and increasingly scarce in our county. I'm asking you to deny this conditional use permit until relevant studies on viability and environmental impact can be completed by third-party experts and are made public. The county is currently working on an ordinance to help facilitate responsible solar growth within Kent County. We need to give the county time to act responsibly. Newcastle County already has an ordinance in place. Culpeper County, Virginia recently adopted a draft ordinance that restricts utility-scale solar to industrial-zoned land. The potential risks are too great to move forward without certainty. I do not believe a single piece of land zoned agricultural conservation should be developed for utility-scale solar. I have spoken to Representative Bill Carson and have his permission in stating that he is opposed to utility-scale solar within our ag conservation area. Our community is in disbelief that this board initially approved such an industrial use of land in an area they have previously declared a conservation district. Please do the right thing and deny this application. As a last thought, I will leave you with a quote from Megan Day, a senior energy planner with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, the NREL. Communities should first figure out where to site their large-scale solar power facilities, then determine how the facility should function as a land use. When planning and designing these projects, it's important to look for synergies. If there are valuable natural areas, watersheds, or scenic areas, don't put the solar developments in those places. Instead, use solar farms as a way to fix existing environmental issues. This proposed utility-scale solar project is less than a mile from the Denrec Aquatic Resource Center, in the middle of the Atlantic Flyway, along the Delaware Scenic Byway, and in close proximity to Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge, not to mention in an ag conservation district. It needs to be denied until the county is prepared to deal with a project of this magnitude responsibly for its citizens. Give your own commissioners time to do their jobs. I also have copies, if you guys would like, of the latest from Culpeper County, Virginia, where they have decided that this scale of solar, utility scale solar, belongs in industrial areas. And I also have copies of Newcastle County's.
Please get over by the mic.
Yep, and I also have copies of the Newcastle County zoning ordinances, which put limits on, as they were talking about the SR zones. We currently don't have those limits. We need you guys to deny this until we can get an ordinance in place that allows us to do this responsibly. We are not against solar. We are not against everything. I believe landowners should have rights too. This county stripped our rights. Even those of us that are not in ag preservation got locked into this ag conservation district. We accepted that because that's our way of life. We value the resources. We value hunting. We value open land. This is not fair to allow these solar companies to come in, buy up this land, and put in utility scale, which is an industrial use. I don't care how you look at it. There's no way around that. And no one wants to look at it, and it is going to diminish our land values. There's nobody, any of you that have ridden out there that have been to our home or our farm, would you want to buy our farm or live in my house if it was across the street from a utility scale solar project? It has to diminish my value. And I've been told I have to have a number. The only way for me to get a number is to put my house on the market right now, get an offer made, get a solar facility put up across the street, and try to relist it. This has never happened in our area. There's no way for us to get you accurate data. Same thing with the Atlantic Flyway. I've contacted Ducks Unlimited. I'm going to be dead honest with you. Lincoln Willis is the lobbyist. His sister-in-law is the president of Ducks Unlimited. They don't like this project any more than I do, but they can't say anything. I'm in contact with Delta Waterfowlers, the guy that's called Mr. Atlantic Flyway. I haven't gotten his response back yet. They don't like this project. I don't know a single person that I've spoken to, and I've spoken to same people you would, that like this project. But it is politically correct right now, and it is being pushed. And there's federal money available, and there's tax incentives. But none of that should affect us as landowners. We should have protection from this county. This county's done a great job of protecting us in the past. We're relying on you to do it for us now. This area has been an ag area forever. I think anyone that is from Delaware knows that. This caught us off guard. The reason we weren't here at this last meeting for you guys, we didn't even know this was a possibility. We thought, I heard about it 2 days before the levy court meeting, and I thought it was a joke. I thought there was no way in the world that 582 acres of land would be used for an industrial solar facility in an ag conservation area. So we're all here now, and trust me, we're not going away.
I thank you for your presentation. You did a great job. And while you're at the mic, I'd like to see a show of hands of how many actually are against this at the meeting tonight. If you put your hands up, let the minutes show this, Sarah and Chris, that give an idea of how many are on record. I don't know if someone will speak or whatever. I appreciate that, and I appreciate whatever you got to say, and you can put over your paperwork to staff. I think we do have some questions for some of the commissioners, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Davis first for questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much for all your statements. If you would, I'm asking that you take your statement that you read, which was well composed, and give it to the staff, because I would like to read that between now and next week.
Okay.
I noticed you read that statement, so if you would include that in the package so we have an opportunity to look at your statement, I'd appreciate that.
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I think we have another question here from Denise, but I don't know if it's for staff or you, young lady.
Yeah. But it comes from what you discussed. Can you give us a little background as to how solar farms became a conditional use in AC?
Public utilities are a conditional use in AC.
Thank you very much.
Once again, I thank you, and I'll ask once again on the phone or up here, any more commissioners have any questions? Seeing none, I thank you again. Very well documented. Is there anybody else here against this project and would like to speak at the microphone? Anybody else here? Sir, right down there. I like the mask, though.
Oh, thank you. I get a lot of comments on that.
We got to have a little humor once in a while. You understand that.
Absolutely.
So if you please give us your name and your address, and you can either be sworn or affirmed.
My name is Donald Goldsboro. I live at 1784 Woodland Beach Road, Smyrna, Delaware.
Mr. Goldsboro, do you swear or affirm tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I didn't think the last time I was here I made myself clear enough that it's not as much about aesthetics, seeing what is could come across the street, which I mean aesthetically is not very desirable, I believe. But
please keep the microphone as close as you can.
Okay. And also I'm not against solar or wind or alternative energies. If you go and review the levy court, I explained it. We tried solar and we tried wind on our farm. It was kind of in the early days back in the 80s. We had an awesome windmill, but it didn't really produce electricity. We couldn't get the technology to where it did. So we're not against it, but we're just against doing it in like a heavy industrial application, which I believe this is. I think if you see what these places look like with the inverters, and the lawyer said that, I think it was the lawyer said that there wasn't any noise from it, but I noticed over at White Oak Park there's an audible hum from it. When I told my brother about that, he said an audible hum. He said that means it's radiating a lot of radiation. And I got a radioactive meter detector, and I went around there. It seemed like more like on sunny days, it registered right off the scale. It registered past 10, and 2 is considered a hot spot. I know there's some controversy over how it affects humans, but the American Cancer Society said that they realized that by their statistics that there was an increase in childhood leukemia and brain cancer near these areas. And then as well, if you go to www.gov.epa, they tell you that if you feel like, there's statistics, and then, but if they feel like you are in an area that's too close to it, simply move yourself further away. I don't believe that's very practical for me to do. So I believe there's a health risk. And besides that, if you look on the fence here, they said there was no health risk, but if you look on the fence here, there's a warning right here. The warning says, keep out. Hazardous voltage inside can shock, burn, or cause death. Well, I consider that a health risk. So I don't think, if it was up to me, I wouldn't want you to have to expose your families to that. If I was on a board voting, what would happen here. And I hope you are willing to return the same courtesy to me. Also, I'm a very much an environmentalist. Ms. Kircher, is that pronouncing that right? Said she was a tree hugger. Oh, I'm a tree hugger too. I heat my house entirely with wood, and I select trees that are fallen from storms or been damaged by infestation or whatever. There's a lot going around lately. And we actually have been trying to grow some trees on our property to try to, kind of investigate, kind of a sample to see what if Christmas tree farming could be practical. So we're definitely tree huggers as well. And if you notice this picture, if you're looking down from high above here, you see a lot of green. I think if this was allowed, what you would see in an aerial photograph would be a sea of silver instead of a sea of green. So I believe that our farming, the plants that we grow, they keep mentioning a rise in CO2 and like that. Well, I don't think covering the face of the earth with acrylic and plastic and concrete slabs that have inverters on it and utility lines and all is the answer. I think if plants convert CO2 to oxygen, then that's being accomplished already. If you take that away, I think you're taking away the ability for nature to clean that up. So I just want you to keep in mind that I believe this is. I know there's been a lot of things about the ducks and the geese, and they talk about the buffer. I mean, I'm the major property owner along there. I could care less if they planted 2 trees or 2,000 personally. I don't think that's really going to improve the aesthetics much. But I just think that what it comes down to is look at the law. Look what the law says is that it's heavy industrial and it's putting our health at a risk along there. And as far as this gentleman was here earlier, he's gone now. He said that he's for like people being able to do what they want with their land. I feel like if that's along there, I can't sell lots if I wanted to. I don't want to. But if I was pressed into it and I needed to, I consider it the value of my property 100% because ethically, morally, I wouldn't want to even sell lots to a person that I thought would risk their health. So I believe, the carpet's kind of being pulled out from under me if this is allowed to be placed there. Thank you.
I thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. I want to ask the commissioners, anybody have any questions for this individual? Anybody on the phone? Seeing none, I will once again thank you, sir. Is there anybody else here would like to come to the microphone and speak against this project? Please give us your name, your address, and you can be either sworn or affirmed.
My name's Charlie Pardee. and I live at 3111 Big Woods Road.
Mr. Pardee, good evening. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Nobody tonight has mentioned anything about the farm preservation. You know, most of you all know that started years ago, to where the General Assembly turns around and comes up with so much money in the annual budget, and goes to the Department of Agriculture and goes out and they in turn buy some rights on the farms to where it helps to offset the value of the farmland compared to people that live on the western side of Route 1, where they in the growth zone. So anyway, we have that. Nobody's mentioned that tonight. I understand and I realize that public utilities can come in on farmland and get a conditional use and all like that and go ahead and put the solar panels. The gentleman tonight mentioned that I guess the natural gas turbine that they have on the Garrison Farm on White Oak Road is supplying 20% of electric to the city of Dover. Did I hear him correctly? Or something like that? I think he said that. But up on this farm, where it's not the city of Dover Electric, these panels probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I think Mr. Moore is here, they're probably going to run lines over to what's called the Cedar Swamp substation on Route 9, and that's tying into the grid. And our grid goes all the way in the middle of the United States up in New Jersey and around. So if this power from these solar panels are supplied in that grid, that electric's not going to stay here in Kent County. Some of it's going to leave here, going across the Delaware River and going on up New Jersey someplace. So, you know, those things haven't been bought out. The reason they're here is our farmland is worth about $5,000 or $6,000 an acre, to where a farmer can make a living tilling 1,000, 1,200 acres or more, because of the cost of machinery and all today. So you come around, and I've got mailers from these people wanting me to sell the farm, and they come here and they pay $11,000 and $12,000 a year, compared to somebody that can only pay $5,000 and $6,000 and farm it. That's the reason why they're hitting the farmland. That's why they're not over at Ryco, that land over there sitting idle. I'm sure it's for sale and all, but they're going to have to pay $30,000, $40,000 or so an acre. Big difference between that and $11,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pardee. Does anybody here have any questions for Mr. Pardee?
Any questions?
Anybody on the phone or up front? Do you have any, Mark? Thanks again, sir. Appreciate your comments. We're still in the against. Is there somebody who'd like to come to the microphone and speak against this project? Ma'am, I think I got a gentleman in the back coming up. Please give your name and address and be either sworn and affirm and pull the microphone down a little bit. There you go.
My name is Lorraine Matarese, and I live at 2192 Lighthouse Road in Smyrna, Delaware.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The reason I'm here today, I'm not a farmer, but I've had close association with farmers probably since the early 1980s. My father was involved in the hunting industry, and we were landowners of land on Route 9 and have leased this particular farm that is now up for sale for the solar situation. And the main reason that I want to talk is about this particular piece of land and the effect on the wildlife migration. People that live out there, especially this time of year, it'd be a good idea, if you don't know the area, to take a ride out there and just sit out there and watch the ducks and the geese by the thousands that come to winter in this area and depend on the farmland and what is left from the farmers to feed themselves through the winter. This particular farm has 9 ponds on one side, 2 ponds on the other. 2 weeks ago, I drove in there with my husband. We were going hunting. At least 1,000 green-winged teal flew up out of one particular pond. Okay, this is where they roost. This is where they stay. These are wild ducks. These aren't like ducks across the river that are being shot, that are farm-raised ducks. There's a big difference, okay? And what has happened to this state is really becoming a tragedy, especially for the farmers. Prime farmland is being destroyed, and the wildlife habitat is what I'm really concerned about. You know, the wild turkeys, you know, we spent so much money trying to bring turkeys back into Delaware. We have them out there. They're all over that farm. Where are they going to go? Okay, where are all the wildlife? Where are they going to go to eat? They can't eat solar panels, and they don't eat pollinating flowers. They eat grain, they eat soybeans, they eat corn. That's how they live. And then the other fact is the proximity to the wildlife refuges, Woodland Beach, Bombay Hook. You know, it's a mega for this habitat. And I'm not against solar farms, but I'm against it being there. This is a big, big mistake. And it's a shame for all of us that live out there. That's our way of life, you know. There's farmers, there's hunters, you know. They coexist together. And that's been the way of life there for many, many years. All I'm asking is just do not destroy this special place. And not to mention the damage to our precious marshland, Smyrna River, and the bay, you know. The large-scale solar farms require a vast landscape for installation and for solar panels and the collection of energy. This means huge tracts of land need to be cleared of everything, including vegetation. And this leads directly to the destruction and fragmentation of wildlife habitat. In addition to this, the construction activity during the installation of the large-scale plants can lead to higher levels of air noise pollution affecting the flora and fauna in the area. And diverting water for the manufacture and cooling systems of solar panels is also found to have negative impact on wildlife. And there are problems with solar panels as well. The toxic chemicals used in the manufacture of solar panels may lead to degradation of water resources and land, and in turn have an adverse influence on existing wildlife in the area. So, just as a steward of the land and a steward of hunting, that's basically what I want to say.
Well, thank you for your comments. I'll ask the commission whether they have any questions of this individual. Anybody on the phone, Mark? Thanks again.
Thank you.
You had great comments. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak and hasn't brought up a pertinent part of what the opposition's about? Thank you, sir. Give us your name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
My name is John Carey, 30 Texas Lane, Dover, Delaware.
Mr. Carey, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The one question I haven't heard an answer to, if anyone lives in the area, it has a commercial business, and they want to enlarge their business, and when we own a farm too, why do we have to go to levy court and to you people to ask permission to enlarge our business, but yet we can build a solar farm on anybody's farm? I don't think the solar people are giving this electric away. I think they're investing to make money. That becomes a commercial business. So that means that If I want to enlarge Carrie Thiesel or the Nash family wants to enlarge their business, we don't have to come talk to you people. I think we'll be in court. And I think you'll agree with that. You know, they're not going to allow us to do that, and we own the land. If I want to take 2 or 3 acres off our farm and build another shop, you're not going to let me do that until I come to you and ask permission and do a lot of legwork to get it approved. But yet, we're going to allow this to happen. And this company is making money off of this. It is a commercial business. It's not, they're not doing it for free. It's not a government project. They're not doing it for free. They're making money out of it. So that becomes a commercial project. I don't care how they look at it, but that's what it is. And on the other hand, this solar farm we got on for City of Dover, why did they put, 3 years after they built it, why did they put a megawatt generator set in there, gas turbine? I unloaded it, I delivered it. You know, it did not, the solar farm did not generate the City of Dover. Go out there and look, you will see a great big gas turbine sitting there. If you're going to depend on solar, there ain't going to be no lights there at nighttime. I don't think the sun shines at nighttime. And I know what I'm talking about because I own a home in El Salvador. I was just there a week ago. There was a 600-acre solar farm 10 miles from my house. Walk out in that solar field in the day. When I was down there, it was about 110 degrees. Walk out in that solar field, and it's 135 to 140 degrees. Walk right through them panels. What's that doing to the climate? Everybody's worrying about the climate, burning gas and propane. If you do the right kind of exhaust system, you can cool that exhaust down. This one out here has that. The exhaust coming out of this building, that gas turbine, guarantees not over 300 degrees if it's operating properly. That's what you got to look at. You know, that solar down there, I was paying 33 cents a kilowatt. Electric's expensive there. You know what it is? This it's been in operation now for 3 years. Now it's 48 cents. Are you ready for that? That's it.
Thank you, sir. I ask any of the commissioners if they have any comments or have any questions. Seeing none, I thank you again for your presentation.
And anyone is welcome. My home's free to anyone who wants to go to look. You don't believe me? Get in an airplane. It's free to anybody who wants to use it.
That might be a very good idea this time of year, I'll tell you. I don't know. Thank you, sir. Anybody else have any comments that hasn't been presented and would like to come to the podium? Richard. Please give us your name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
Richard Wilkins. I live and farm at 9311 Memory Road, Greenwood, Delaware.
Mr. Wilkins, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do. Commissioners, I have some visual aids. May I have permission to distribute them?
Hand of the staff right there.
So while you're distributing them, I'll just start off by addressing there was a point made by the applicants talking about pollinator habitat. Pollinator habitat's important, extremely important, in areas where crops are being grown that are dependent upon pollinators. This region of the county predominantly is corn, soybean, small grain production. All three of those crops are self-pollinated crops. They are not dependent upon pollinators for those crops to be able to establish fruit. Now, parts of our state where cucurbit crops and fruit trees are grown, yes, those areas are dependent upon pollinators, so much so that they bring very healthy hives of pollinators in just at the time of the year that those pollinators are needed. So I don't put a lot of credence on this, establishing of wildflowers for pollinators, because they're really not needed in that area for the type of agriculture that's there. Now, the maps that I brought along with me and handed out to you there just wants to to point out that those blue shaded areas on those maps are tracts of land that have conservation easements on them. So I make this point because trying to depict the character of this part of the county, east of Route 1. These are private landowners that have chosen to place conservation easements on their property because they have a strong desire to preserve and protect the agriculture in this state and this county. So if you look at the vastness of the amount of land in blue shaded areas, the gold shaded areas are those areas in agriculture districts that may at some time wish to apply to sell a conservation easement. Many of these landowners have put conservation easements on their property for very little compensation because they have such a strong desire in their hearts to keep agriculture viable and to preserve agriculture in their neighborhoods. This corn and soybean and small grains that are being grown in these areas on this farm, up till now anyway, they're adding to the global supply of feedstocks that are used both for animal protein, the production of animal protein, which many nations in the world are deficient in protein. There are also crops that are used for renewable energy. Nearly 40% of the corn in the United States today is used for the production of renewable fuels. 20% of soybeans are used for the production of renewable fuels. That's on the verge of even exploding even greater. We could be producing soybeans, 50% of the soybeans that we could be producing would be for renewable fuel if the federal government carries out this desire for what's called sustainable aviation fuel. We're on the cusp of sustainable aviation fuel being incentivized, and soybean oil is the predominant feedstock for the refining of sustainable aviation fuel. I've been participating in an energy stakeholders group. And many of the experts that are giving information in that work group, even some of those even within the solar energy industry, openly admit that they can't compete with wind-generated renewable energy. Wind energy is less expensive than solar energy, from what I hear, from what I'm told. But here in Delaware, it's just not feasible to generate renewable energy from wind. We don't have the right terrain for that. But there are other states nearby and other terrains nearby that are suitable for wind energy, and wind energy is being developed there. Wind energy that's going into the grid, wind energy that we can use here in Delaware, here in Kent County. And I don't mind, as a Delawarean, purchasing wind energy out of the grid, because you know what? I'm producing corn, I'm producing soybeans, my neighbors are producing poultry, and we're selling that poultry to those areas, to people that live in those areas where wind energy is being produced. So that's commerce. Isn't that commerce? Why are we so hung up that we have to produce our own renewable energy if we can actually purchase it less expensively out of the grid from areas that are producing wind renewable energy? Last thing I want to point out, and I've testified to this before, is the first 40 years of my life, Delaware lost 100,000 acres of farmland. During the next 5 years of my life, Delaware lost 100,000 acres of farmland. To me, every square foot of farmland is precious. At the rate that we've been developing our pristine state, if we don't stand up and say we want agriculture to continue to be Delaware's predominant industry, as we lose farmland, we begin to lose the agricultural infrastructure. Ask the farmers in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, what happened when they lost their infrastructure? What happened when the providers of the infrastructure said, you've developed too much. It's not worth it for us to stay here. The rest of the agriculture was like walking off the cliff. We can't allow that to happen here in Delaware. We've got to, at some point, take a stand and say, enough is enough. Don't force our farmers, don't force our young farmers to have to compete with these other competing land uses. You know, there's adequate sites in this state where solar power could be put in. Brownfield sites, carports, rooftops. I didn't want to destroy very many trees, so I didn't print this report off for you tonight. But the University of Delaware completed a study concluded in June of 2019 called The Feasibility Study of City-Scale Solar Power Plants Using Public Buildings. And they concluded that it was feasible to do commercial scale solar projects on rooftops in city areas. You know, if the cities and the growth around the cities, the smart growth, agree, Sarah? If that's where the creation of energy demand is, then why should we not want to try to put the generation of renewable energy as close to where that demand is being created? Why does it have to come out into our agricultural areas? So, again, just to summarize, please listen to the numerous folks that have to that live and work in the areas surrounding where this project is. They overwhelmingly are opposing the approval of this conditional use request, and I support their cause. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any of the commissioners have any questions for this individual? Anybody on the phone, Mark?
So no commissioners online.
Seeing none, I thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Thank you. I will take one or two more statements. I've allowed as much time for the opposition as I did for the plus side. So I'll take this gentleman and one more if that's the way it be. So, sir, give me your name, your address. You can be sworn or affirmed.
Paul Cartanza, Senior, 6289 Bayside Drive.
Mr. Cartanza, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go right ahead, Mr. Cartanza. How are you doing, sir?
Just a quick thing. Our speakers have really said a lot. It's amazing what Trish and Richard and a lot of the other ones have stated. I'm not going to restate anything. Only thing I want to make notice is that when Route 1 went through, everybody said there would be no development east of Route 1. You're trying to consider east of Route 1 a development. I didn't care if it's a house, solar, whatever. To me, development was key from staying off of the east side of Route 1. I've farmed here since I was 8 years old. I'm 63 now. I own 1,200 acres of my own land. And it's tough doing what we do. We have to fight for things. We have to give things. But we don't want somebody to come into our area, take good prime farmland. Please put it somewhere where there's land just sitting there waiting for someone to develop. if they're willing to spend that kind of money on trees and infrastructure, then it would be just a reverse, because they could just go into that industrial area and do what they want. Wouldn't have to be no trees. It's an industrial area. So please think about what we're going to try to do. Save our east side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cartanza. Does anybody up here have any questions for him or on the phone? Seeing none, I once again thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak and have comments?
Yes, sir. I'm Kevin Goldsboro.
Up by the mic, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm Kevin Goldsboro. I live at 668 Lighthouse Road, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Sir, do you swear or affirm tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So I've lived across the street from
Please get up by the mic a little closer so we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, I've lived across the street from this proposed area, all my life. To just see, it's such a beautiful area. I want to say a little bit about myself. I served in the Delaware National Guard for 6 years. I love my country. I love my state. This is part of the most beautiful area of this state. You go from take Route 9 from Dover Air Force Base to Port Penn, you see beautiful preserved farmland. It is one of the wonders of the world. I see every year there are thousands of waterfowl that need this area. Delaware's a small state. We've lost so much habitat for the waterfowl with all the developments. If this becomes a sea of panel glass, you just tell, here again, just like with all the developments, we told the waterfowl, you have to go fly somewhere else. That's what would happen here. You just go somewhere else. How many times can we keep telling the waterfowl, go somewhere else? So there's a couple points, and I will try to be brief. So my father's a property owner. He owns 300 plus acres across the street there from the proposed area. In a free America, we have rights, things we should be able to do with our land. So my wife's in the horses. We discussed possibly having a little overhang shack, put a couple horses in someday. We can't put that shack up without a significant degree of scrutiny. So it's mind-blowing to me how all that much area, could be used up, and the same amount of scrutiny be placed on just putting a small barn up. So my other point about, so you could debate the legality, if there's laws specifically against this, whatnot. But there should be laws to protect people. We need to protect the farmers. The waterfowl need protecting. We talk about, my father brought up radiation. I have a 3-month-old daughter who she would probably, an infant would be extra susceptible to, radiation present. So if there's not laws in place to protect us, protect the things I mentioned, there should be. And until there's specific law against this, the panel companies, they're going to want to come in here every month, and myself, everyone you see sitting behind, we will be here in opposition. We will not stand down either. And I pray every night that this solar panel, this complex, will not be put in. So that's.
Thank you for your comments.
That's basically what I wanted to say. Are there any questions?
Do I have anybody up front or on the phone who have any questions for this individual? Thank you very much, sir. You did a fine job. We've heard from everybody about what their opposition was. We've heard about the waterfowl. We've heard about the farm preservation. Is there anybody in the crowd that would have anything else that hasn't been mentioned that would like to come to the mic? If not, then we're going to move on. We have somebody on the phone, Mark? Go ahead, let me know.
We just want to ask for anyone who has been joining us via WebEx from the phone, if you'd like to speak in opposition to this application, please press *3 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute your line. Okay, Desiree, you can give your name and address for the record and be sworn in.
Hi, my name is Desiree Karakaya. I live at 338 Lighthouse Road, Smyrna, Delaware.
Do you swear or affirm tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll just be really fast. I live directly across from the site. We've been here like 10 years, built our home here. But my main concern is that everybody who is in favor of this project lives nowhere around here. They live in Wilmington, in Newark, in Middletown, in Pennsylvania. I want to hear somebody in favor who lives on Lighthouse Road, who lives on Woodland Beach Road. I want to hear and I'm not hearing any of that. So that's just all I have to say. Thank you.
Is that your comments?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll ask anybody here have any questions for this individual. Nobody has any. Once again, I thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chairman, they reserve some rebuttal.
Excuse me, sir?
They reserve some rebuttal time.
Oh, the applicants? Ma'am, come back up and restate your name so we'll know who's talking.
Yes, Chairman Jester, thank you. It's Wendy Stabler for the applicant. And I will be brief, and I really appreciate your indulgence and your patience. And I appreciate the passion of the crowd, of the folks that live here and that are very concerned and are passionate and have expressed with great emotion their feelings. I just want to make a few points, and hopefully you'll consider those points as well, as it's a bit hard to address some of the emotion and some of the passion. So I do want to point out that there was someone from the Sierra Club, which is the foremost environmental organization, nonprofit, probably one of the oldest in the country, who did speak in favor of this and obviously felt that the environmental concerns were outweighed by the benefits of renewable energy. It's been referred to as an industrial use. It's not an industrial use. Industrial is manufacturing, distribution, emissions, all of those things that we associate with industrial. It's not. It is a conditional use allowed in an AC district. Your AC, the use of the word conservation, is interesting, but if you look at your own code, there's many, many, many uses permitted either by right or as conditional uses, golf courses, for example, many other uses, residential, commercial, community. So it's really not just farming. Appreciating that a lot of folks do farm in this area, and it's a tremendously productive enterprise. The fourth point I wanted to make was, and it's obvious the burden is on us, but the difficulty of proving a negative to prove we won't disturb the waterfowl, we won't adversely impact the hunting, that the birds won't go somewhere else, that we won't have adverse environmental impacts, the negatives. It is difficult, but we do have someone here tonight he's been listening. He's a professor at the University of Delaware, and I do think he is qualified to speak to some of the concerns, many of the concerns that were raised by these folks. And I think it would be helpful, I hope, for the board to entertain his response to those concerns.
If he does, I'm only going to allow him 5 minutes. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Name and address, and be sworn or affirmed, sir. And remember, 5 minutes.
I'm Steve Hegedus. I live at 116 Mans Avenue in Newark.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you.
I've been involved in the solar technology and development for 40 years at the University of Delaware. I've worked on many different solar technologies, including the ones like would be proposed for this project. And I'm not here to talk about land use, but I am here to talk about some of the concerns that I've heard about emissions and water quality and that sort of thing. I have my lab where I work, we make solar cells, and we are very, very conscientious about safety and monitoring of hazardous conditions. And yes, like one of the speakers said, that there are toxic chemicals that are used in the manufacture of solar modules. All of that stays within the factory. Solar cells themselves are totally inert. They are solid state materials, they're crystals, and they have metals on them, very ordinary products. And after they're made, they're encapsulated between several layers of plastic to make them, the whole module package has to be very watertight. That's like the key goal for manufacturing. You want to keep that water moisture out for 25 or 30 years, which means if no moisture is getting in, even if there was anything inside the module that was hazardous, it wouldn't be coming out because they are a very tight package, very well encapsulated. And that's by design. We have solar modules sitting around in our lab. I have boxes of them in my office. They're not toxic. They don't outgas anything. Nothing is, no liquids or gases come out of them. And then the other thing I wanted to address is that once the modules are installed, they are, because they're such a watertight package, there is nothing that is coming out of the solar modules and contaminating the soil. And let me just give you a personal story. I'm really proud of my garden. I have a big vegetable garden. I'm an organic gardener. It's right next to my house. The water from my downspout runs right by my garden. I was the first resident of Newark to get solar panels on their roof 15 years ago. Knowing everything that I know about solar modules and how they're made, would I have done that if I thought that there was the least chance that I was going to be contaminating or poisoning the vegetables that I feed my family? No. Another comment that was made was something about radiation. There is absolutely no radioactive anything in the processing or in the solar cells themselves. That is an absolute false assertion. There's nothing radioactive, no radioactive materials, and no radioactive processes involved in the manufacture of solar cells. So I don't know where that comes from. Another comment was about, and the idea about brain cancer. There's hundreds of thousands of homes in the United States that have solar modules on the roof. People sleep right under those modules. Don't you think that if there was a causality between solar modules and some kind of health problem that we would have heard about this by now? Solar modules have been on roofs, like I said, on mine for 15 years. My wife and I sleep right underneath that. Our kids slept underneath it. Many, many hundreds of thousands of homes have solar modules. There is no health issue reported or observed with that. So, just to conclude that solar modules are a completely benign package, and there is no emissions of radiation there was talk about the noise of the inverters. Some of that noise is just the fans running in them. I've been at big solar fields, and you can drive up and you don't hear anything. You have to get very close to hear a little bit of noise. It's far quieter than many other land uses that are used. So, thank you.
Well, I certainly thank you for clearing some of those questions that I was going to have for you anyway, and appreciate your comments. Is there anybody on the commission or on the phone that have any questions? Mr. Mills?
Sir, I think everybody that I heard was for solar panels. I'm for solar panels. I think they're great. It's where they're putting them. Do you want to see prime farmland agriculture destroyed with some type of an industrial property? You don't care about farmland, is that what you're saying?
I did not say that, nor did I imply that.
You didn't mention that. You mentioned about what you're saying, the conditions of solar panels, which I don't object to that. I think you're right on that. Absolutely right. It's where they're putting them. Where they're putting them, they want to put them on prime farmland. When there's other places, just like you just said, up on the roof. If they want them in Dover, put it on the industrial property in Dover someplace. We're not against they're not against putting up solar panels. It's just where they're going.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. I don't think he's qualified to talk about that anyway, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you, sir. Having gone through a lot of pluses and minuses tonight, I certainly thank everybody in the crowd for being civil. I didn't mind the some clapping when you did perform that and all. I appreciate all your comments, and especially dedicating your time to the Kent County and letting us know exactly what you feel and how you feel. Next week, we'll be taking this up, and we'll have a decision on it next week. At this time, this particular project is closed. I can let all of you get out before we continue our meeting so that there won't be any noise. I appreciate, once again, all of you coming. Moving on with the agenda for tonight, we're down to public comment. Seeing no public, I'll move down to commission comment. I would. So, Denise, go ahead, and then I do have something to say.
Yeah, it was a rough night. It was a rough night for my patients, among other things. I don't think what I'm going to say, I'm saying because I don't think it's my right up here, and maybe I'm wrong, when someone comes up, whether they're in favor or objecting, to go against what they're saying, and trying to tell them facts that I can find by Googling, which I did tonight. I found a lot of facts that I could have said, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But I didn't do that because I don't feel that that's my job. But I did feel like I just have to say it, and I know I'm going to go on the record, and maybe I won't be here next week. I just felt like I was listening to fake news. And it just became kind of irritating until that nice professor stood up, an expert, 40 years, who actually explained almost everything that was incorrectly stated by people who were passionate, and I know they don't want it in their backyard and all that, and I get it. I really get it. But am I correct, Sarah, that that's not my job up here is not to say you're wrong? Am I correct about that?
I think that's probably a choice of each commissioner. In my experience, challenging someone testifying doesn't end well.
No. And to me, it's impolite. I don't think it's right to do that to someone. They're saying what they want to say. I guess it just bothers me when I'm sitting up here and I realize they're not, they believe things, they've been told things that are incorrect. But I understand that it's an emotional thing for them. But I just had to vent.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Denise. I do have something to say. We've had quite a few controversial projects come before us, and I certainly congratulate each one of you as you go to sites to look these over and actually put your expertise into seeing what's there. But I would like to ask that there shouldn't be any kind of comments when you do go to these sites that you're supporting this or not supporting this. That's going to be developed up here in the meetings. Yep. If you have questions about the site, you shouldn't be talking to those individuals saying, hey, I can do this or I can do that. Really, you can't. We need to do everything as a commission while we're here doing written or testimony under our attorney to see if it's right or wrong. We need to work with staff. So continue to go to these projects. But I ask, and this one here, I'll be going to it too. And if you do go around, you talk to some of the neighbors and all, be very jovial with them and talk to them and all, but don't do anything that you're going to be saying that you're promising them this or you're promising them that, because we're not promising anything. We're hearing what we hear from public statements. We're analyzing how it fits in with our code and with our ordinances. So everything we do here is very professional. That's the way we were appointed to this job, and I can be removed from this job any day, but I feel as though that the things that need to be said that are plus or minus need to be said here at the meeting and not out with the public when we do review the sites. Sorry about that, but that's the way you're talking to an old farm boy here, and that's what I speak my words about. Any other commissioners have any comment? Mr. Peterman.
I agree with what Denise was finding out on her little computer phone, that we get fed some fake news. And if we don't know it, like Denise was standing there looking up, they had her really busy. If we don't know a lot of that, we'll make our decision on fake news. So I think it's like you said, go out to the sites and look at whatever you feel and get the information you can feel, and then get any information you can anywhere to see if this is radioactive or if it isn't, and things like that. I really appreciate that man when he stood up and said what he said, because this gentleman over here is talking about a 3-month-old baby. He was scared to death about the radiation, and that's because someone else told him that. Yep. And I don't know if that's got radiation leak or not until Denise found it. Till this man explained to it, but he's got a 40-year history in it, and that's, I would take that 40-year history over the neighbor saying they got radiation. I think it's good, too, that we all work together, just like we're doing, to come together. Next week we'll bring it up and we'll vote on it. We'll see what goes.
Exactly right. And we're not always in agreement, but we do apply ourselves to what we feel is correct and how it's applied to county regulations. Right. So that's why we're here. That's why we're appointed to here. That's why we have our attorney. If we get offline a little bit, he can smack us around too, as far as I'm concerned. But I do appreciate all you do, and I respect each one of your comments. And if nobody else has anything to say, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Denise, please call the commission.
Mr. Peterman.
Yes, to adjourn.
Mr. Servon. Mr. Servon. Mrs. Karcher.
Yes.
Mr. Mills.
Yes.
Mr. Spanarelli.
Yes, to adjourn.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Jester.
Yes, thank you, Denise.